Do you think this is a little bit too staged? Like, wouldn't it just be like having a conversation? You know what I mean?
Hey everyone, in this little video I'm going to ask Tremaine a bunch of questions about pole dancing, the typical stuff she gets asked all the time, and I'm going to be interviewing her. So if you think there's like an entire audience of people here, it's just me.
I was living in Australia at the time, and I was, I think, in my last year of university. And then I came across this advertisement for this school called Bobby's Pole Studio. And I saw some of the things they were doing, and I thought, hey, this looks really interesting, because I have a dancing background. I used to be a dancer even when I was a kid in primary school. I did Chinese dance, and I went up to doing just modern jazz, funk, hip hop, salsa, ballroom dancing. I spent a lot of my teenage years in a dance school. And I thought, you know what, this is gonna be next level. And what really kind of got me started is the challenge of combining your dance skills with strength and mobility on the pole. And it was such a different experience that I was hooked on the challenge itself, which sounds really weird. It's not like I seek challenges or seek difficult things to do, but it was something that I've never done before. And when you do get to doing some of the basic things and you go, oh my God, like I can do this. I think it was that adrenaline that got me hooked. And then I signed up for a course. I don't remember what my first class was like, but I remember my first performance. So at Bobby's Pole Studio, they ran these 4 to 8 week courses. So you go from like a beginners to intermediate 1, 2, 3. So to make sure that they set you up with the foundations of the basics to do this right and do it safely. So that was really, really good. And because of that kind of format, you really saw the progression that you're having, which it drives more motivation. So I don't remember my first class, like I remember my first teacher, Isabel was her name. She's this tiny little Aussie girl, and the amount of strength she had was just unbelievable. And my first performance, I was really working at the time, and I had my best friend and some friends that I knew from uni and started to come to watch the show. Now, it was a bit awkward for the guys. They're like, well, it's not a strip club. It's like, I don't throw dollars, right? And I was like, no, you don't throw anything at the girls. But the moves are all kind of, PG. They were real technical moves, lifts and things like that. It was not like we were kind of dancing around in bikinis and doing gyrations on the pole. So for them, it was also an eye-opener. And I remember at the end, when I was performing, and it was a Britney Spears song, just a short part of it. And the boys were like, it was a little bit awkward on some of the moves, but this is completely different experience. And they loved it because I guess for a lot of the guys, they have never seen this side of pole dancing. And for the girls, my girlfriends that came in, especially my best friend, she was saying how amazing it is to see women with such strength. Now, bear in mind, this is a long, long time ago when I was at university and when I got my first job. So back then, pole dancing was still a little bit taboo. So it was nice to see people that came along and was receptive to these things and actually promoted it to then other girls and it actually grew like at a crazy exponential rate after that. So I don't remember my first class, but I remember my first performance, and I was hooked. I enjoyed it, the whole show and tell, and also inspiring other women to try the classes as well. I love that it took something that had this really negative perception or connotation that associated with it and took it to become something empowering. And not just for women, there are lots of men who do the sport now because it really does require an incredible amount of strength, and you can't get there without the discipline to train and really practice. And most of the girls in the class that are doing really well are just your normal everyday girls. You're not trainers or like people who are kind of in that world. And that really, just to see that and to see that become a sport where it's respected is the most amazing thing, I feel, for me, that keeps me also motivated to do better and become better and really help promote something that has been seen as so negative and sexual and just in a sexual context to something that's as well respected as any of the gymnastic sports that are out there. It has a combination of both. So pole dancing has grown so much from just dancing around the pole, a little bit on the pole, and just pole tricks, like, tricksters, people who do like stunts on the pole, like your Cirque du Soleil style. And now there's a mash and whole range of things from exotic, so a bit sexy, but a bit also technical with like boots. And then you've got the contemporary dancing around the pole. So there's contemporary dance, ballet, complete with tricks on the pole, transitions, making it fluid, to just kind of like pop music dancing. So something you would see like what J-Lo did in her concert actually once. So there's so many variations now. There is anywhere from a combination of gymnastics and kind of pole techniques with dancing to either or. Yeah, and that's the beauty of it, because it has evolved into such a sport where there are many areas that anyone can try depending on what they like and what their strengths are. Honestly, I would say not really. I think it's an opportunity for anybody to try, but it also does require some sort of physical health and fitness to keep up at it. Because, I mean, I would like to say sports is for everyone, but pole dancing at a certain level does require some strength and training, and you really need to be careful of hurting yourself. And I see that in a lot of people who try to overreach or are not sure, and then they go, well, of course I can do it, and then they end up really hurting themselves and putting themselves out of any sport because they've just hurt their shoulders or their back so much from overexerting and not understanding their body. So I'd say it's something that everyone should give it a go, because it's so much fun having a spin, and the amount of adrenaline and confidence it gives you when you do kind of try it is really something quite different to any other kind of sport that you would do. But for everybody, in terms of really doing well, I think there's a lot more things, and people should actually look into that before they start it, because even for the most fit teachers, they've also said, you know, we need to take breaks. We really need to train properly to make sure that we are fit enough to do this and also teach you. And that's one thing that I guess we neglect to really mention. Yeah, and you know, in today's world, everything's inclusive. It is, for sure. Anyone can try a class, but I think there's also a real discussion and real facts about what your body can and can't manage, like a split or handstand, you know, or headstand or the elbow stand, for example. There are some really technical things that you should be aware of. And being safe in the sport, in any sport, is the number one priority you should have for yourself before knowing if it is a sport for you. Dancing is a type of sport, no? Fitness. I guess maybe it's more like, I think it's a type of fitness where we do many types of sports to keep fit and to keep healthy. I think pole dancing now can be seen as a type of sport that leads to overall fitness for your body, because you can be dancing, you can do lots of strength-based tricks and mobility. I mean, you can even combine yoga and pole for stretching capabilities, etc. It's really a tool that you can use to what suits you. And your fitness levels and your fitness desires. So yeah, I feel like it's more of a sport now than it is. Yeah, well, I think it is a sport, even though it also has dancing. Of course, I think, well, physically, there's going to be a lot of changes in your body, especially if you're training quite regularly to reach certain pole achievements or pole moves or pole transitions. They are seen as quite, I guess, advanced. You will naturally see that. So I think in a physical sense, I'm definitely a lot stronger. I'm a lot leaner. The one downside to being a pole dancer, well, not downside, but I think many pole dancers will relate, is for girls, your shoulders do grow quite a bit, and so do your lats. Some type of clothing don't sit so well, like cap sleeved. I don't know if many people know what that means. Cap sleeve top. It actually makes your shoulders look a lot bigger. So it's not that flattering a type of clothing. And what happens is usually the shoulders are too small for you to wear certain t-shirts, but it's just nice on your lats and the rest of your body. So you kind of have to adjust your wardrobe a little bit. And you end up buying a size bigger because your shoulders and lats just don't fit like, say, a medium size. You need a large, but then everywhere else is a bit loose. So there are definitely a lot of physical changes, and I see that as a positive thing because I feel really strong, and I see how much stronger I've gotten. Now, obviously, I keep a moderation also in training, because then you might overtrain and then you go on the other end, and your body doesn't have enough time to recover, etc. So going on the physical changes for sure, Yes, with pole dancing, you also get abs, which is what a lot of girls would like. And guys, actually, yeah, a lot of people like that. Who doesn't like a nice washboard kind of, you know, body where you can fit into a bikini any time of the year? Pole dancing does give you that because it is a full body workout. So you see all those changes naturally in your body as you train. So with that same kind of training, I've realized that, you know, in terms of mental, emotional health, I've noticed that I'm quite focused, and it makes me a little bit more disciplined in my routines, not just in my fitness, but also in my eating or my going out, and making sure that I'm healthy and I sleep enough. So because I'm motivated to keep track of my journey, and it feels so much positivity in my training, that I am therefore then also disciplined in keeping my lifestyle a certain way. I don't feel like obviously I'm not saying this in terms of, oh, I have to sacrifice many things. No, but it's a change in your behavior and making sure that you are keeping your priorities right. You know, motivation is a great way to start anything, because the hardest part is always the first step. But discipline is what's gonna get you through. You can always be motivated to do something, but the discipline is what's gonna make you get up, put on your pole gear, start a warm up, and try something. And I feel that change in my mind, and I feel that that's also come through in many other things in my personal life, at work as well. So in general, that's really helped make my mind a little bit stronger in kind of prioritizing and taking action to things that I really want to do. Honestly, there really isn't a balance most times and most weeks. I think you make a choice, a conscious choice as to what your priority or priorities, I guess, in different aspects, to then make the time for the different things. Pole dancing for me became a priority in my fitness because it gave me so much energy and positivity for everything else in my life, that it became a priority that I make sure I dedicate some amount of time. Then it came, so the next thing is, well, then if that's a priority, then I need to make sure I sleep enough, I have enough nutrition, and I rest enough so my body can be at its best when I'm practicing or when I'm rehearsing. And obviously that then also goes into kind of work. So I need to make sure that, you know, in my job or my work days, I'm not being too stressed out. I need to be in a role where it helps also give me that kind of, I would say balance. Balance is a kind of, it's touchy because it means everything in equality, but it's never really balanced. I think some weeks are better than others, but you make sure you keep your priority list and you make time for those things, because honestly, for sports, especially when it's not something that, like, it's your day job where you get paid and you have a salary and you've got commitments that you need to adhere to, it can take a back seat. Like with most fitness things, some people start and they can't finish it, or they kind of lag behind, or it becomes a byproduct of their day if they have time. The thing is, you will never have time if you don't make time. So how do you do this? Is you make time for the things that matter to you. So I make time, make sure, for example, on average, I will make sure that I train for pole at least 3 times a week, whether it's in a studio, in class, or at home. And this is not about, oh, I need to do specific things. I just need to make sure I spend an hour 3 times a week doing pole class in any way, shape, or form. It can be a beginner class, intermediate, spinning, dancing, whatever. And then I make sure that every night, so from during the week, I make time that I will sleep on time, etc. I'll make time for my friends as well, because I also need that. And I have one day where I do anything I want. If I want to do more pole dancing, sure. If I don't want to do anything and sit in my little rocking chair and have naps through the day, sure. But you really need to make time for the commitments that matter. There is no other way. And if you don't make the time, you will never progress. So that's why the whole mental commitment to your fitness is super important, and really prioritizing. And yes, sometimes that means I have to compromise on, hey, this week I'm not going to be able to see some friends because they're going out on a day where I have training at school. And that's okay. There's always next week. We shouldn't have this whole FOMO mindset, oh, if we don't do this, we're going to miss out on this thing. And that's actually the one thing that I see in a lot of people in their pole training. Oh, how do you have the time? Like in my previous classes, some other classmates would say, how do you have time to do all these things? I'm like, you don't really, you make the time. And that's the one rule that I would suggest most people do. Make the time once a week, twice a week, half an hour, whichever. If you really want to see progress in your pole training, you really need to just make the time. It's as simple as that. Maybe not so simple. Starts there. There are two sports or two type of things that are extremely complementary to pole dancing. And obviously one of them is yoga, because this is the channel where I talk about lots of pole dancing things and yoga, as I have great love for it. Yoga is amazing because it really teaches you to understand your body in all the different types of stretches and positions and how you move into those positions. It really makes your mind more aware of your left, your right, you know, kind of your hips movement, a tiny movement to improve a yoga pose. That's extremely complementary. And the best part about yoga is you can use it as a warm-up, as a training tool, and also as a stretching tool. And stretching, like yin yoga, is something that a lot of people forget, and that results in lots of tightness in muscles, etc. And then it could potentially result in you hurting yourself because your muscles are just not in the right position to, you know, to do certain things. So yoga for sure, and Pilates. Is it Pilates? Pilates. And Pilates. It really helps you build your core, which is quite essential for pole dancing. You don't have to take very advanced classes or the complicated ones where they use a reformer machine. Those are great for sure. But as even a basic Pilates class, because it teaches you how to engage your core muscles. And when you do that, you actually see your performance increase a lot on the pole. Because the pole really, there's brute strength, but then it also gets to a certain level where you really need to understand your body, left, right, which muscles, and your core. So these are two other types of workouts that I would encourage people to try or practice regularly to really keep up with your pole fitness. My sweaty hands, well, sweaty palms, as I say. It's probably not a very common thing that lots of, I've never seen it openly discussed, and people say, of course you get, you know, sweaty palms a little bit when it's hot, whatever. Sure, but I have sweaty palms all year round, no matter the weather. And it is a struggle because grip strength, or grip in general, is one of the main things in pole dancing. And if you can't grip, you fall. And if you can't grip, you can't try, and et cetera, et cetera. So it's something I've constantly struggled, and struggled even more when I lived in Singapore. Actually, it's one of the main things why I stopped pole dancing for a long time, because I struggled with the heat and just getting the right amount of grip aid to help me with my sweaty palms. And I even resorted to wearing a type of grip gloves that they've made, which was it did not look nice unless it was in a particular theme, and it also didn't really help improve my strength, because you were so reliant on the gloves to grip onto the pole that you're not understanding the different grips and how to move into poses. So actually that made me stop pole dancing for a long time before I picked it up again. And I started to tell myself, it would never improve unless you find, if this means so much to you, you need to find solutions that will improve for you. So I still struggle with it today, but I kind of found a bit of a formula in my how to get grippy video. You will see this. That works for me, and understanding that during certain times of the year and in certain countries, I will struggle a bit, and that's okay, because you also need to be aware of what your body can and can't do. If that continues to stop me from doing that, then you know what? There's many other things I can't do either, like doing weights at the gym, you get sweaty palms. Doing pull-ups at a bar, you get sweaty palms. So it's really about working what you have and knowing what to do when you do face a difficulty. Hence, that's why I talked about really understanding your body, and etc. and things like that. So that is the number one thing I continue to struggle with, even as we speak. I have never participated in any competition in my entire pole dancing journey, even though it hasn't been that long, technically speaking. And I've always thought to myself that I should. I mean, some teachers and have encouraged me going, if sweaty palms is a problem, start with all your tricks at the first minute and then just go in to do lots of dancing, because a competition song doesn't have to be 5 minutes. It can be like a minute and a half. And I thought, you know what, that is doable. But I just never got the balls to do it. You know, I'm very good with showing people in class and helping other students, or helping my friends, or even just as a performance piece at school, but I've never done it. I don't know if I ever will. I think getting a medal is really not what I want out of my training. I think that's nice. which is probably why I never set up, to kind of train towards that. And what I fear is if I train towards that, I might actually stop loving the sport as much as I do, because then I'll just be training for a medal. And that happened with CrossFit. And I really did not enjoy doing, weights and all that for a long time, because it just reminded me of that whole training and then changing my entire life just to match that. And I didn't want that. So if it's not something I want, then, I would say no, and that's important. Workshops, however, are super fun. Workshops normally in most pole schools, because they're not the usual curriculum, so they're usually either things like flips or specific type of tricks or pretty poses or a specific song. And those are super fun because they're not of the day-to-day, so you're not thinking about technique and all these things. It's really about going in there, having a bit of fun. I think some of the ones, for example, I did a pole workshop, which is 2.5 hours in Singapore, where we danced to a Korean song called, I can't remember what the song is, but it's by Blackpink. Super huge Korean band. Super fun, and because it was 2.5 hours, we had to learn an entire choreography. Lots of funny things happen because you don't remember, and the vibe is just really, there's an amazing vibe in the class because of that, right? Then I also took part in a flips class. Now, for someone who's not very brave when it comes to kind of flipping, like I'm not a gymnast, and I'm really amazed by people who just kind of flip off a pole, like jump off a pole in a somersault. I was like, you know what, this is a good time to test some things that I'm not very comfortable with and have one-on-one guidance with the teacher, because the courses are normally smaller, they're about 6 people, so you got more than enough time for the teacher to help you. And I had such a good time. And actually now I started incorporating some flips in my routine, because I just do the basic ones and I really like it. So that was super fun. But I have also participated in workshops where you might be struggling with 1 or 2 things in your routine and you really want to get better. And some of these workshops are, again, smaller groups, so you have more attention. So I participated in the Aisha workshop. Aisha is quite an advanced move in pole dancing. Requires a lot of core, coordination, and strength, really, and grip. And I took part in this course, and I didn't achieve some of the things I wanted to, actually a lot of the things, but after that, bearing in mind what I learned in that course, I was able to put that into my own practice, into my own training. And then I eventually did achieve all the things that I wanted to. So I actually encourage people to take workshops. They're usually one day. They're not that cheap sometimes, but you try things that you might not necessarily do, and you get to know new people, and also get to find new things you might actually like. I think that pole dancing, because of the different types of dancing that I do in pole classes, so I've done the sexy ones, exotic ones, the pure strength ones, I don't think it really kind of changed in terms of confidence or maybe in that aspect, but it gave me confidence into trying new things that I didn't think it would be possible for me. So whilst it's definitely very empowering and, kind of know how to walk on 8-9 inch heels, that's amazing, and without kind of losing your balance or walking like a duck, as they say. Other than the very, vanity things in knowing how to walk properly, the way you pose, because pole dancing, because of the nature of the dancing and when you're performing, you do kind of have to strut a little bit. And so it really teaches you your posture is the word I was looking for, and how to present yourself and walk. And that naturally would then exude as you walk into a room, as you walk into in my role, I do lots of presentations. So it really teaches you of your presence and your stage awareness. And that confidence comes through. I took a course, a messenger course here recently, and that's what the fellow students in the course, as well as the instructor of the course told me. He goes, your confidence is obvious, but not overbearing, but you're very aware of the audience and your presence on stage. So that's really helped me in that sense. In the other sense is also understanding being confident in trying things in class and trying new things on my own, because I'm so much more aware of what my body is doing and how my body is moving into those things, into those poses. So it is true that this whole, yes, as much as, we want to take the negative sexual connotation to it, it really can bring out a confidence in anybody that's kind of trying to take the class, in how to have presence on stage, in a meeting, at a table, because you really have to do so when you are on the pole. And it's a natural thing, it's not put on, so that's quite nice, especially when people give me that feedback. So I really enjoyed that. I don't have a overall big goal, like I want to do a competition, I want to get a medal, nothing like that. I set little milestones in the form of poses or certain things that I can do by myself on the pole as things that I can ascend to. Personally, I don't believe in the big overall goal because, especially with a sport like pole dancing, what I see is because there's so many facets, you will naturally be good at certain and not so good at others. And because there's so many, you can't really be good at everything either. And that's why even in a pole dancing competition, you have different categories. So I don't have that big goal, but every time I train, I give myself little goals to do. Or I have poses that I go, okay, in the next couple of months, I want to try and accomplish this one pose. And then I'll set up the training that way. So this first training, I'm going to try to get this first part and then the second part so that I can then move towards that. And then once I've accomplished that, then I want to be able to do that easily or whenever I feel like it. And so those are the types of goals I set for myself, because I think if I set too big a goal, and like I say, in the whole competition space, it's not for me because in my own experience, once I've gotten there, and then it will feel like, well, what do I do now? You know, I feel it's not a very positive way to look at my training. And like also, well, why don't you be a teacher? Lots of people have asked me. I really like to help others achieve their goals, and that's why we're doing this. So maybe that is something, but being a teacher doesn't mean you have to also be the best at everything. You have to be good at teaching, and that's also a very different type of goal. So yes, I have mini milestones and I wouldn't call them mini, I have milestones and poses and tricks I want to be able to confidently do by myself, but I don't have an overall, I want to be the pole dance champion or whatever. That's not for me, and that's okay. Advice for someone who's starting out. A few things, if I could. One, if you decide that you want to do this, then really make the time to commit to the sport. Even if it's something that you say I don't need to do all these tricks, but you want to do so, then do so, because pole dancing is not easy. Yes, the first basics of just kind of spinning on the pole, that's super doable for most people with a relative level of fitness. But if you really want to make this, or you're really into the sport, the only way to progress and the only way to do better is really commit the time to training and make it part of your routine. I hear lots of girls in some of the classes I've been where they go, oh, how did you get this far? Oh, you spent only like 1-2 years really training these things. I'm like, but that's 1-2 years of dedication. It's 3-4 times a week and doing lots of things that are in line with that training. You can't really get somewhere without some level of commitment. And I think so the first thing is, if you really want to do something, then be committed to it, even if it's once a week, and that's okay. 2, it is hard, very hard. Therefore, number 1 is important. 3, don't be shy to attend your first class or your second class. You will eventually make friends, and some of you might even go on the same path and same journey of doing this. But you kind of have to start somewhere, and it's very awkward in the first few classes because everyone's got a different level, and you kind of go, well, I'm not doing so well. You're afraid of how you look. All of us started that way. Nobody flew into a pose like, at the beginning. Even the teachers did. Even the most experienced dancers did. When they first started, they probably couldn't do a pirouette, which is a turn on your foot. So I think, don't be afraid and to really give it a go first. 4th, people are going to say many things. Some people will go for it. Other people will say many not so nice things. They might criticize what you wear in class, etc., etc., etc. If you're going to let everyone else's opinion decide what you're going to do with your hobbies, well, then I guess you wouldn't be doing much, because everybody will have an opinion to something. But, if it's something that does well for you, then go for it. The only thing that's going to be stopping you is yourself. Last but not least, this is in the area of be safe and knowing your limits. Lots of pole dancers in the beginning stage, they get very excited and they try many things, and they're not aware of the safety that you need to have, like sweaty palms, or how to exit a pose. And always make sure that when you're starting out, especially in a class, have someone help you or wait for the teacher to come help you. Too many injuries, and I see this all the time in different classes. You will be surprised how much damage you can do to yourself just by falling off the pole. And I've done this to myself, even at a pretty experienced level. Fractured my toe. So yeah, safety is very important. And in that same topic, also knowing the limits of your body, kind of creates the kind of programs where you can get to a certain stage and don't be so rushed with yourself, Who are you rushing to achieve this for? You're gonna just, be more frustrated if you try to do something too quickly without the right guidance. You might end up hurting yourself. Remember one thing out of this entire 5 things I just talked about, be safe. For anyone starting out pole dancing, the most important thing is your safety. Because if you fall, if you hurt yourself, you're gonna be out of action for weeks or maybe even months. And sometimes it might be things that you can't even, repair. I have a friend who injured her shoulder really badly. She can't do many advanced things anymore because of that. So the one thing to take out of it, be safe, know the limits of your body, and train along with it, not against it. Thank you for these questions. I hope they help some people get some clarity into the sport, some more insights, and feel free to drop me more questions in the comments below. Subscribe!